So hi everyone, thank you very much for being here today. So as you know, the Centre-Loire are pretty known to be taste young, but the Centre-Loire wine can also age perfectly, and I hope you will discover that today with us. And I let Konstantin and Arnaud and Sophie present to you all the Centre-Loire wine, young and maybe not young.
Yeah, thank you, Camille, and thank you all for coming. I think we're going to have a really good time tonight. So to get you started into your evenings, we'll do a beautiful tasting. Let me first introduce myself. I'm Konstantin Baum, and I'm here to talk about Centre-Loire. But fortunately, I'm not alone here. I'm joined by Sophie Landra-Guyollot, who is the CEO and winemaker of her family's domain. They've been making wine since the 16th century, so for a long, long time, in Pouilly-Fumé and Pouilly-sur-Loire. And I'm very happy to have her here today to get her expert input as well. We also have Arnaud Bourgeois, who is also from a family of great winemakers. They are in the 10th generation, I think. So for a long, long time, they've been making wine in Sancerre. They're based in Chavignol. And last time I was in the Loire, I was fortunate enough to taste together with Arnaud in his beautiful tasting room, looking at the vineyards of Sancerre. And I hope we get some of the spirit into the glasses and into the room today for you. Clearly, we have two domains that have proven that they can age, that they can mature over the years, over the centuries even. But today we will do something quite special. I think the wines from the Centre-Loire are famous all over the world. They are sold in many different markets, and they have become really successful. But they're not necessarily always associated with being age-worthy, being able to stand the test of time. And some of you might know I have a deep interest into old wines, tasting old wines. And for me, it was really nice to picking out some examples of aged wines from the Centre-Loire that we're going to taste in a blind tasting today. So don't mix up your glasses. You see no descriptions of the wines on the table. So we will be blind tasting them in order to kind of get your feedback first before we reveal what the wines are. But before we get into tasting the wines, I will give a brief introduction into the region. And if you have any questions along the way, any feedback, any comments, then please let me know and I will try to answer them. And if I can't, then I have two people from the region here who will be able to help me. So let's get into the presentation. So this is the Loire River, the longest river in France. It goes over 1,000 kilometers through the French countryside, and it's a very diverse region. So there are lots of different wine styles coming out of that region. But today we're going to focus on the part here that is circled, the Centre-Loire vineyards, which are quite far away from the Atlantic coast. We are in a continental climate. What links up all of those different regions in the Loire, I think, is the freshness, the vibrancy that the wines bring. But the wines that are made here in the Centre-Loire are quite special. But why is that, you might ask? Here are all of the appellations that fall into the Centre-Loire. We have a big diversity of different smaller to larger AOCs, from the Coteaux du Génois in the north here to Châteaumeillon in the south. There are lots of different styles coming out of this region, different grape varieties being used, and different wines being made. So it's not that easy to put Centre-Loire into a few words because there's quite a lot of diversity here. So as you can see, we have a in total 6,000 hectares in the region, split up between 700 different growers, roughly 700 different growers. So the average per winery is less than 10 hectares. So what you can see from that is that there are quite a lot of small producers, not the big estates, not the huge conglomerates, but small wineries making handmade wine. And you can also see that they are kind of spread out, but more concentrated around Sancerre and Pouilly-Fumé. Roughly 2/3 of all growers are based in those two appellations. Oh. Okay, I think we have one slide. It's moved around, but anyways, that's fine. So we also have different grape varieties in that part of the Loire Valley, but clearly Sauvignon Blanc plays the biggest role with 80% of all of the vineyards planted to that grape variety, which kind of stands for the region. But you can also find Pinot Noir with 15% of all of the vineyards planted to Pinot. But there's also a small list of other grape varieties that are being grown in the region that also play an important role, like Gamay, Pinot Gris, Chasselas, and Chardonnay. But the share of those grape varieties is fairly small. This picture kind of shows you a little bit more visibly how the shares are divided. So the vast majority is Sauvignon, and when it comes to red, Pinot is definitely the king in the region. Centre-Loire is the birthplace of Sauvignon Blanc as a grape variety, so it is obviously a very important part of the region's history and of its reality today. So here we come to the different soil types, and they play a really important role in the region. You can actually see lots of wineries putting their soil types onto the label. The most famous one are probably limestone, which are called the caillotte in the region. You can also find clay limestone mixes. Those are called the terre blanche. And silex, flintstone, is also quite widespread. I think silex is actually the soil type that manifests itself the strongest in the wines itself. So I think it's fairly easy, well, it's fairly easy to pick out the silex wine in a blind tasting, which doesn't mean that you always will be able to pick it out, but it produces a very distinct style of wine. And we also have sands and gravels in some parts of the region, particularly in Quincy, where you can find quite a lot of sand in the soil. The region is also very engaged in converting the vineyards to organic viticulture. They are biodynamic producers, of course, as well. Sustainability is also a very important part. Roughly 50% of all of the wineries are certified in one way or another, and that's not where it ends. There's a very ambitious objective, 2030, being planned that 100% of all of the producers in the region will be certified according to some certification, so not necessarily all certified organic, but depending on the needs and the possibilities of the wineries, certified sustainable, for example. Getting a region to 100% is always very ambitious because there are always people who decide not to be a part of something like this. So it's definitely something admirable. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to dive into two regions. I think you might have already figured out that the wines that we're tasting today are from the wineries of the two members of the panel here. So I didn't want to kind of get you into guessing which regions you have in front of you so that you can really focus on the vintages, the age of the wines. So I'm going to talk about the two regions that these wines are from, so the wines that you're going to taste are from, and go into a little bit more detail. They are also the biggest regions in Centre-Loire, the most important in terms of quantity, but also really important in terms of quality and putting the region onto the map. So I want to start off with Sancerre as a region. As you can see, earlier we talked about the total vineyard surface area, which is 6,000 hectares in total. Sancerre alone has roughly 3,000 hectares, so it's half of what Centre-Loire has to offer in terms of vineyards. There are 330 producers in the region, which also makes it the biggest in terms of producers, and it has also a very, very long history. You can see white wines clearly play the most important role, with 82% white wines, 10% red wines, and there's also Sancerre Rosé available, which represents roughly 8%. We only find Sauvignon Blanc and Pinot Noir here. So Gamay, Chasselas, and those grape varieties don't exist in Sancerre AOC. They are really focusing on the two main grape varieties in the region. So Arnaud, a question for you, as the representative from Sancerre. What, in your opinion, makes the terroir of Sancerre so special? Why is it so successful today all around the world? Is there an element that you can pick out that really is key to Sancerre's style?
Well, good afternoon, everyone. This is a very difficult question because to answer this question in a few words, it's not so easy. But I would say that we are probably in a place where the variety of the terroir, where the diversity of the terroir is quite important. And the fact that Sauvignon Blanc and Pinot Noir grow on this specific terroir brings a very special character to the wines. And probably this unique character is like a DNA to have a very special style of Sauvignon Blanc. So I'm not sure that we can say that there is only one criterion which could explain why the Centre-Loire wines are popular around the world, but I would say that it's multiple factors which all together create a style of wine of Sancerre, Pouilly-Fumé, etc., which would probably make these different wines very special and very different to the others.
Okay, thank you. It would have been nice to just get an easy answer, just one factor and that's it. But the wine world is never easy, I guess. What I have always wondered is when I was young and starting to get into wine, I always learned that Sancerre and many vineyards in the Centre-Loire were just planted to red grape, or mainly planted to red grape varieties until phylloxera, and then everything was pulled out and replanted, or much of it was planted to Sauvignon. Why do you think were the red grape varieties planted before, and what made people change their mind completely and move from red to white during that period?
Well, at that time, we're talking of 1890s, up to 1890s, when the phylloxera started to be a big problem in the region of Sancerre. It was more a wine that people like to consume, so the red wine was more for the local consumption. It was not really fruit to make a wine to be sold at that time. So red was easier to keep because we all know that in a red wine we have tannins, and tannins help the wine to be protected against oxidation. And thanks to that, the wine were keeping in a better way. And it was answering the need of consuming a red wine, particularly for all the people working in the vineyard. It was difficult, and they wanted to drink more red than white. So the reason now why they replanted after phylloxera Sauvignon Blanc, first of all, they hesitated between Chasselas and Sauvignon Blanc. Chasselas was a grape at that time which was appreciated to eat because it was sweet, sugary, very flavory as well. So, and they noticed that making wine out of Sauvignon Blanc because they were cultivating both Sauvignon Blanc and Chasselas, that the Sauvignon Blanc was giving a better result in terms of quality. So more and more they converted the vineyard from Pinot or from Chasselas to Sauvignon Blanc. We're talking of the beginning of the 20th century.
Okay, so it would have been a totally different world for Sancerre if they would have stuck to Chasselas then.
Yes, well, at one stage we can imagine that they would realize that it's good to plant Sauvignon Blanc in this particular region, knowing that Sauvignon Blanc has been cultivated anyway since the 11th century, probably even earlier than that, but we have no proof really.
Yeah.
But it shows that Sauvignon Blanc, I don't know if it was born in Sancerre or in Pouilly-Fumé area, but that's for sure that it's been cultivated for a long time, even though at the end of the 19th century, Pinot Noir represented 80% of the surface.
Yeah. Okay.
Planted.
Brilliant. Yeah. So, are there any questions? Any comments? Anything? No? Okay. We can move on to the next. Yeah. Say again?
All of the wines from the same pocket of sort of soil textures, or is it coming from different?
Same pocket, as in.
Blocks? The same pockets of soil. Or is it from
Right. Okay. So the wines that we are going to taste are all of the wines are from the same place, from the same winery, and are made in a very similar style. So the only distinguishing factor in the tasting will be the vintage.
So they don't have maybe one pocket of limestone and another one of clay.
Okay, yeah, that's possible depending on the wine. So it's not necessarily all the same soil type in one wine. But the focus of the tasting will be on the differences between the vintages or the age of the wine and whether they've aged well or haven't aged well. That's kind of what we are going to concentrate on. All right. Okay. Any other questions? Then we're going to move on to Pouilly-Fumé, Pouilly-sur-Loire, and then we're going to start the tasting. So these two AOCs cover roughly 1,350 hectares of vineyards. They were basically established at a very similar time as Sancerre white. And the sole focus here is on white wines. But we have Sauvignon Blanc for Pouilly-Fumé and Chasselas for Pouilly-sur-Loire. So these two grape varieties play a role in this region. We also, just like in Sancerre, find all of the three main soil types in the region, so from limestone to clay limestone to silex. So all of the different soil types that we talked about before, apart from sand. So, Sophie, in your opinion, what distinguishes Sancerre from Pouilly-Fumé in terms of stylistic expression?
It's impossible to answer, really. I'm sorry, Konstantin. We are very I would say we are twin vineyards, really. We even have got a saying which says, "Eau nous divise, vin nous unit." Water, the Loire in between us, divides us, and wine is what makes us together. And really, we've got, first of all, the grape variety, which is common, Sauvignon Blanc. And we've got also the soils that are common to Sancerre and Pouilly-Fumé. For example, we've got flinty soils in Pouilly and in Sancerre too. We've got marls, what we call terre blanche, Kimmeridgian marls. And we also have got limestone on both sides.
Yeah.
So in a blind tasting, even myself, I could make a mistake and say, oh yes, it's a Pouilly-Fumé, and no, it would be a Sancerre wine. So it's impossible to answer, really.
So when in my Master of Wine exams, they deducted points because I didn't put a wine into Pouilly-Fumé and said it's Sancerre instead, I should have actually received full marks for that. Yeah. now we got proof. That's the only reason. I hope someone recorded that. But the fumé part, where do you think does that originate from? Why do people call it, or how did this name develop? I often hear that it has something to do with the silex adding a smoky note to the wine, but
not only. Also, it has to be linked to the grape varieties, Sauvignon Blanc. Maybe you know that we are allowed to write on the label of our wines either Pouilly-Fumé AOC or Blanc Fumé de Pouilly-sur-Loire. And Blanc Fumé is how we call Sauvignon Blanc in Pouilly-Fumé. And because we noticed that when the grapes are ripe, they are covered by a little a smoky kind of, well, we call it pruine. I don't know. It's like a skin. It's like a smoky look. And when you put your finger on it, man, it's shining again. So it's maybe one of the explanation, and the other one is of course the gunflint taste of the wines.
Yeah.
The specific aromas that you specifically find in flinty soils, in silex.
Okay, great. So, if there are no questions right now, then we can get into the tasting. I actually would like you to just taste the wines on your own, form an opinion. I won't give you a lot of time though, because we are kind of restricted on time. So you probably already started nosing the wines and tasting them a little bit. So go through them on your own, form your own opinion, and then we are all going to get back together and talk about them. The main focus, of course, is supposed to be the age, which wines you think are the oldest, which wine you think is the youngest, and how they've developed over the years. Maybe you even have an idea which vintage one wine might be or the other. So I'm looking forward to all of your feedback, and I hope you'll be really active in a few minutes, but I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to just kind of focus on the wines, and then I'll be back with some more commentary. All right. Did you manage to go? Yes? Defective in what way? Sorry, cork taint. I really. Wine number 3. I mean, we have different bottles, so I'm not really sure. Can I just? I don't think it's corked. I think it's the age that shows a little bit, but I don't think it's corked. No, we have different bottles, but the winemaker tasted all of them. Yeah, exactly. All right. So there's going to be a little bit of bottle variation. Usually when we talk about older wines, they will develop slightly different depending on the cork. But all of the wines were sourced directly at the estate. The winemaker tasted the wines in order to make sure that they are up to scratch. So there will be some variation there, but they should all be representative of what the wine has developed into. So I think it's quite fascinating to taste aged Sauvignon Blanc. This is Sauvignon Blanc. I'll give you this much, because for me it was never a grape variety that I associated too much with aging potential. Usually, I kind of looked for Sauvignon Blanc when I wanted freshness, fruit-driven wines. But tasting through the Centre-Loire wines on my trips there, but also tasting through a bunch of aged Sauvignon Blancs in preparation for the seminar, I noticed that the grape variety actually has quite a lot to give when it's a little bit more matured. The fruit flavors obviously change. They change from the more overt fruit-driven flavors to something sometimes a little bit more exotic, sometimes a little bit more caramelized, but still something really beautiful. What is obviously important is that the grapes, or that the wine has concentration, that it has great acidity in order to kind of maintain or pull everything together over the years while it's developing. So Sophie, what is your experience with aging those wines? You have quite a lot of aged wines from your estate in your cellar, right? Do you enjoy them most when they're young, or do you actually like them after 5 or 10 years?
Well, usually we release wines on the market lately that some other wineries or other Sauvignon Blanc in the world. We are really slow at releasing our wines, and I do love wines when they are young and when they are more they have more aged. I like both.
Yeah.
You've got to find the appropriate dish to match.
Yeah.
And that's always amazing to open an old bottle. That's also a little bit of a risk,
Yeah.
but that's a risk which is worth to be tempted.
Yeah. So do you have a favorite food match with aged wines from your estate? Is there a dish that you like to cook when you open old wines?
I quite like all the vintages with homemade foie gras, because very often you associate a foie gras with sweet wines.
Yeah, Sauterne.
And it's a nonsense, because foie gras itself, it's really rich, and when you add some more, when you top some more richness with the sweetness, it's a nonsense. Also, I like them on a nice meat, for example, Bresse chicken.
Yeah.
I also enjoy them with fish, cooked fish in sauce, which is really beautiful. Scallops is a good match.
So now we are all getting hungry here, I guess. I could actually see the Bresse Poulade with some morel and cream sauce.
Yeah.
I could see that beautifully with something a little bit more aged and a little bit more like rich and concentrated. But now my question for you is which wines you think is the oldest. I'm just going through all of the three wines, and you raise your hands if you think that wine is the oldest. So who thinks wine number 1 is the oldest wine in the tasting? Hands up. Okay, yeah. So that's 5, 6, 7, something around that. Who thinks wine number 2 is the oldest? Nobody. Why do you think it can't be the oldest? Yeah, that's kind of the dead giveaway. Yeah, I mean, when you smell the wines, you notice as well, but you just have to look at them. I mean, the wine in the middle is clearly the palest, while the one on the left and the right is darker, more golden in color, more concentrated. So who thinks wine number 3 is the oldest? So that's, I think, the clear majority. Why? Does anyone want to say why you think it's the oldest? Sorry? The color, okay, that's one, but they are kind of similar, aren't they? Wine number 1 and wine number 2, I think they are fairly similar in color. Is there anything else? Yes?
I'll try. The third one tastes slightly more jaggy.
Okay. Yeah. More rich and concentrated. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Yes.
I think wine number 1 still holds a slight bit of acidity, where in wine number 3, the acidity is made way for minerality, which is sort of kept its space.
Okay.
Which I think color is very, very much the same, but almost like a haystacky minerality that's left there.
Okay. Yeah, brilliant. So, does anyone else have anything to say? Do you know which one is the oldest, or what do you think about the wines, as they are your wines?
Yes, they are definitely my wines. Yes.
Do you have any commentary before I reveal the wines?
No, I don't have any. No.
No. Okay. Then we'll just reveal them and talk about them then. So you were actually right. The majority of you were right. Wine number 3 is the oldest, but it's the oldest by just 1 year. So wine number 1 is actually very similar in age, and we're really talking about aged wines here. So they are almost 30 years old now. Have developed really well, have kept together really well, I believe. So especially, I also agree that wine number 1 showed the best. It's very open. There's flavors of passion fruit. There's flavors of pineapple. Quite intense, quite clear, quite ripe and concentrated. So there's definitely quite a lot of intensity there. And there's also a lot of freshness on the palate still. So a lot of vibrant acidity combined with quite a lot of body and structure on the palate. So Sophie, what's the difference in your experience between those 3 wines in terms of winemaking? Were they made in a very similar way, or have you also developed over the years?
No, it was they were made in the same way. It's direct pressing and then followed by cold settling. Mm-hmm. After that, we've got only an alcoholic fermentation, no second fermentation, and we've got a maturing on fine lees.
Okay, so you always block the malolactic fermentation in order to maintain the freshness.
It's
and
never
or
developed.
Is it never
it's
happened?
never happened. Yeah.
Do you do this with the perspective in mind that you want those wines to age over the years?
Yes, and because also I want to preserve the fruit of Sauvignon Blanc. Sauvignon Blanc is already an aromatic grape, and I want to preserve this fruit and this freshness, and this is why I'm choosing to have only the first fermentation.
Okay. So wine number 2 is the 2020. I think
Yes,
the most
that's
recent
it.
is
Yeah.
the most recent you have right now is 2021 available
Yeah.
to the market. Do you think that wine, which is obviously young, vibrant right now, do you think it will last as long as the 97? Or?
I should think so.
Yeah.
Yes. And what do you think?
No, I believe it definitely has lots of concentration and precision. So I would imagine that it is age-worthy for sure. I lack the perspective and the library of tastings that you have in order to really put this into a figure. I wouldn't be able to say exactly how long it's going to last, but it's a beautiful wine right now, and it's kind of interesting to see where this will go over the years. So we have to do the same session in 30 years, get together again here at Wine Paris, and then
Maybe you'll go to visit me at the retired pension.
I don't think so. I don't think so. So are there
Will be
any
retired.
questions from the audience? Any comments? Anything you want to know? Yeah.
Might be a bit technical, but do we know what the pHs are?
Do you have the pHs of the wines?
Yes, of course. I've prepared this for you. Let me have a look. For 1996, the pH was 3.09. Yeah. For the 1997, the pH was 3.18. And for the 2020, the pH, let me check that for you. I don't have the pH, I have got the total acidity, which says 4 grams 10. 4.10. And for the other 97, total acidity was 6. 6. It was 6. It was 6. It was measured. It was the last berry sampling before wine harvest, and the total acidity in 97 was 6 points. And for 96, the total acidity was 6.44.
Great. I actually didn't prepare any technical notes, but I prepared some notes on the vintages. 1997 was the year when the first Harry Potter was published, so that made the year special. Jan Ulrich also won the Tour de France that year, and it was actually, from my understanding, actually not the better vintage out of 96 and 97. 96 was regarded as the better vintage, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Even though I think in this pair, the 97 outshone the 96 a little bit. Maybe it was the fact that it was the vintage that wasn't as approachable when it was young, but therefore had everything in order to age over the years.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think 2020. I didn't find anything on 2020. I don't know. Nothing happened in 2020, but. What do you mean?
From the 20 compared to the 19 and 97 and 96.
Yeah, I think there's a list of reasons, but what would be your main reason for it?
The total acidity in 2020 was 4.10.
No, the question was why it was lower.
Because of the weather conditions. Because of the weather conditions, we had a really hot. It was one of the hottest year. Yes, it explains that because we had a production of sugar was really high, and we even had. Let me find the weather conditions. I've got them somewhere. Où est-ce que j'ai mis tout ça?
So I think. So you're saying due to the heat, the acidities were basically lower in 2020, which makes obviously a lot of sense, and which is probably also a topic that the Centre-Loire has to address over the years, right? As it's getting warmer in the region as well.
Yes, definitely.
Will acidity be missing in the wines, or are there enough ways to mitigate that?
It's really strange and amazing. We see that acidity is lowering, and that alcohol alcohol richness is growing too.
Yeah.
But still there, when you taste the wines, there's a lovely balance.
Mm.
I can't explain why.
Yeah.
Qu'est-ce que tu penses? C'est juste incroyable, quoi, en fait.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, sometimes it's difficult to explain. First of all, if I may say, congratulations, because 96, 97, we're talking of 30 years old wine almost. And I think we should realize how a wine like that can be in other regions after 27 years.
Yeah.
And I think we have the elegance. Everything is like a laser sharp, very distinctive, and there is no sign really of evolution. We don't talk about oxidation. We haven't talked about oxidation so far, even after 27 years.
Yeah.
So the fact that the pH, which is quite low, and acidity quite high, is like the backbone of the wine, which helps the wine to go through the years. And this is quite unique. And the fact that we don't make malolactic fermentation in Pouilly-Fumé or in Sancerre helps definitely to offer to the wine the freshness that they're having today.
Yeah.
That's, to me, an important key point that
for sure. Yeah.
we should mention. Now, back to the discussion we were having, I think there is something magical, is a word which is quite difficult to explain, but minerality. The minerality would give probably a part of the answers that we are trying to look for to explain why they are so young and etc. So this is to me a kind of a definition that in Pouilly-Fumé, in Sancerre, in the Centre-Loire region, we are having a very unique terroir expression, and here is to me the best example.
Yeah. Just before the question, 1 second. If you could empty one of your glasses, I know it's difficult to get rid of one of the wines, but we will have 3 red wines coming up, so we need one more empty glass in front of you. But
I would just like to say thank you so much. I never realised that with Pouilly-Fumé you could have an aged wine like that and it could be so perfect. It's amazing. 97 was the year that I left university. Oasis were still playing Wonderwall, and you've made me feel very young in front of a group who are a lot younger than me. So I would just like to say it's amazing. And a question I'd like to ask is, why when you buy Pouilly-Fumé, are you recommended that you drink it young? When clearly today has shown that the wine can age exceptionally well, and in fact is better older than it is younger, in my opinion, à mon avis.
yeah, I think that's a question for you, Sophie.
The problem is the market is asking us to release the latest vintage. And I think it's a nonsense. Here in my winery, we are very slow releasing the vintages. Because we think there are really, our wines are tailored for aging, really. So it's a nonsense. On n'est pas des vins que je sais pas comment dire de primeur. We don't produce primeur wines, really. So it's a nonsense. But it takes ages to educate the consumers and to show really that our wines can improve over the age. it takes time, and sometimes in some markets, some faraway markets, the distributors are not bothered. They are lazy, you know. They don't want to take the time to explain to the consumers, and that's really a shame.
What do you think, Arnaud? What's your opinion on
I
that?
totally agree with Sophie. I think the reality is Pouilly-Fumé, Sancerre are wines coming from Sauvignon Blanc. And on the market, we are compared most of the time with other Sauvignon Blanc from the whole world. So when we drink a bottle of Sauvignon Blanc from South Africa, from Chile or from New Zealand, we all know that they would be more fruity, they would be probably fresher, aromatically more awake when they're young. And the market is used to that. And it's going to be difficult for people to understand that there is another layer on top of the fruitiness of our Sauvignon Blanc from the Centre-Loire region, which is a complexity. And here is a wonderful demonstration today that we have the fruity character, but on top of that, much more complexity if we are patient enough. But then it's difficult to stimulate, to help our distributors to take this kind of, or to explain this phenomenon to their own customers. It's going to take a lot of time. But with BIVC, it's part of the mission also to open some new areas of what the Centre-Loire Sauvignon Blanc should be considered for, and in which field we are going in the future. It's a niche region for Sauvignon Blanc with completely different spectrum of expression.
Yeah, I think maybe, I mean, obviously it has to be a group effort. Everyone has to be involved, the consumers, the distributors, but also the wineries, I guess, could hold back some of their stock and release it later to make sure that they arrive on the market in an aged fashion, right? But that's obviously also a challenge, a financial challenge, more like, and maybe a warehouse space challenge. But I think these wines show that there is quite a bit of benefit to give them time to develop in bottle, even. Yeah. All right.
Just last one question
yeah,
here.
yeah.
Yeah. I wondered if we could know more about the soil of this wine. Maybe I just skipped it, but is it one soil? Is it a blend? Maybe you said that before.
So the soil types.
It's a blend of different soils,
Okay.
really, but mainly marls and flints.
Thank you. All right. Yeah. So the question is there a connection between the terroir, the soil type, I think mainly you mean, and the age worthiness of the wine?
The answer is clearly yes, because, for example, in my vineyard we've got sandy soils, and there are soils that give wines that are really ready for drink when they are young, full of freshness, full of fruit, and we've got Chimeridgian marls and flints that are terroirs that give more potential to the wines for aging, clearly. And on my wine estate, I produce 2 different wines on specific soil, other cuvées than La Rambarde, and they are both, one is produced out of marls and the other one out of flints. And the vintage I'm currently releasing is 2017.
All right. I think we have to move on to the reds, but if there are any questions that you still have, then keep them in mind, and maybe we'll get to it afterwards. I hope everyone has their wines. Apart from us, we are still missing one, but I think that's fine. You can already start nosing them, tasting them, and we'll do the same game again for the red wines. Okay, being conscious of time, I'll keep it or give you a little less time to right now to taste through the reds. But I think it's again a very fascinating triplet here. We are talking about Pinot Noir, and Pinot Noir has the reputation of being pretty age-worthy. I mean, there are other regions that produce amazing Pinot Noirs as well, and they are more, maybe a little bit more renowned for being age-worthy. But tasting through those wines, I think that we also have to look at the Centre-Loire as a place that produces age-worthy Pinots. I mean, the grape variety obviously never, or usually shouldn't have opulence, richness, huge concentration. It should always be a delicate, elegant grape variety, making delicate, elegant wines. But when they age, they develop and become a little bit more round, develop flavors that remind us of forest floor and slide over the tongue really like velvet, basically. And I can see some of that in those three wines. So my question again is, what do you think, which wine is the oldest of the lineup? Well, we do it like before. I'm going to go through the wines and you just raise your hands. So who here thinks wine number 1 was the oldest wine out of the red wines? 1 and 2, yeah, there are a few, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so wine number 1. Wine number 2, who thinks wine number 2 was the oldest? Oh, that's the vast majority of people. And wine number 3, who thinks wine number 3 is the oldest? No one, I think. That was pretty obvious too, I think. A wine that offered, well, first of all, the color again was very concentrated and very intense, but also lots of fruit flavors, lots of concentration on the palate. So do you want to say some words about the lineup and the way you perceived it, Arnaud? Because those are your wines, so you're the man to talk about it.
First of all, maybe a couple of words about the origin of the block. You all know that Sancerre and Konstantin...
in that case, I'll reveal the wines first, probably. It's better if you want to talk about the block itself. So you were actually, or the majority was actually right. Wine number 2 was the oldest one, the 2002. So we didn't go back into the 90s, but we went back more than 20 years here. And now, Arnaud, the stage is yours.
Okay. Well, I was saying that it's important maybe to mention the origin of the block. In Sancerre, as you know, and Konstantin mentioned it earlier, we have 3 main types of soil. And this cuvée called La Bourgeoise comes from the flinty soil. And the flint is a part which is on the eastern part of the appellation. It's also the smallest in proportion. We're talking of almost 15% of the surface of Sancerre on the flint. And it's quite rare to find the Pinot Noir or to cultivate Pinot Noir on the flint. So it's probably also something quite different from what you experimented from Burgundy, because flinty soil doesn't really exist in Burgundy that much. It's more limestone and clay. So in terms of expression, first of all, maybe the visual aspect, as you were saying just now, for a red wine, we can see easily, because it's an obvious part of the tasting, that the color has more evolution on the red than on the white. And this is something to do for many parameters. And one of the parameters here is the fact that we have fermented and aged this wine in oak barrels. And when we speak about oak barrels, we speak about tannins that we bring into the wine, which protects the wines against oxidation, for example. but also we bring micro-oxygenation. And this micro-oxygenation at one stage has an effect on the color over the time. So that's why it was quite obvious that the number 2 was the oldest one. You want me to, you want to take over maybe?
Well, I can take the word back, but I also enjoyed listening to your words about the wines. I think it's kind of fascinating to taste this lineup, because I think all 3 wines still show beautiful fruit. You can certainly sense that the 2002 is aged. The 2010 also shows signs of age, but they are still very much present. They are not at all falling apart. They are beautiful. They are just different. The only thing I might want to say is that the 2018 is actually a bit too young now to be consumed. So this is definitely a wine that needs a little bit more time, maybe another 20 years. Who knows? But as these wines develop over time, you certainly get more of these slightly matured flavors. You get a little bit of dried prune here. You get a little bit of forest floor flavors coming through, a little bit of mushroom character. But it's all very precise and very clean. I think these aged examples are the ones that I would serve with game dishes, with venison, something like that. I think those would be beautiful matches. So what do you think will be the future of Sancerre Rouge? It's obviously something that is still developing. The AOC was established way after the AOC for the whites, so it's still work in progress, I guess. But where do you see the future of this wine style?
Well, I believe that the Pinot Noir in our region will become more and more reference for Pinot Noir. And I don't want to have the impression to lack modesty, but I believe that because Pinot Noir likes actually the type of climate we are having. So I'm sorry to say, but the global warming is bringing probably positive effect at the moment in our region to grow Pinot Noir in good condition. That means I'm not saying that it's a good thing, the global warming, of course. But I mean, for the Pinot Noir, it's important to have a season in September which would be soft enough, I would say, or with good difference of temperature between the day and the night. And if we have that, we would reach probably a riper level of fruit, and tannins would be softer, and the wine would be probably more expressing the nicest character of the Pinot Noir. So it's, I think, a fact that more and more people are also wine growers, winemakers, are also conscious about that. The last 10 or 15 years, we have also understood a little bit more about the difficulty of growing Pinot Noir with much more control on the yield, probably also more operations done in the vineyard, like the green harvest, like making sure that we have a canopy which would offer the best of the vineyard. Everything to make sure that the quality of the fruit is going to be good at harvest time. For example, bringing aeration, like leaf plucking or these kind of things. So I don't say that the proportion of Sauvignon Blanc and Pinot Noir may change in the future in the Centre-Loire, but I believe that Pinot Noir has good days in front of him in the future in the region of Centre-Loire.
All right, great. Are there any questions or comments from the audience before we wrap it up here? No? Bravo. Okay, well, that's a comment that we are going to take. No more questions? Okay, so I just want to say thank you very much for being part of this experiment. I hope this kind of opened your mind to aging the wines from the Centre-Loire and giving them a little bit more time in order for them to develop into beautiful wines like the 6 wines that we've tasted today. I also want to thank Sophie and Arnaud for being here and helping me with their great expertise and knowledge. And I hope you have... is there another question or... The bottles, yeah, I think we can bring them out in a minute now that we revealed what they were. So I hope you have a great fair. Enjoy the rest of your time here in Paris, and thank you all for coming. Thanks.